So I came over to her house and I dropped a bomb on her, and I'm sitting across from her waiting for her at any moment to say, "Get the fuck out of my house." But she just staring at me. And, I told her about the BDSM. I told her about the sex parties and all of these things. And she kind of looked at me and says, "I don't know if I can be with somebody like that." And I was like, okay, fair enough. I'm still waiting for "get the fuck out." And so she starts asking more questions. And she's like, "Well, why and how and all of these things." And I try to explain it. And after that conversation, she's like, "Well, I appreciate your honesty and all this. Maybe I'll just keep you as a friend." And she kept true to her word because we're married now.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 357. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have an awesome interview with Anthony. Anthony has always felt a little different and has been exploring alternative relationships for a long time. And he was originally introduced to the lifestyle scene by a dominatrix who took him to a dungeon, and he was a little bit overwhelmed.
Just a touch.
Just a little bit.
Might have scared him away for a while.
He then found swinging and was in that world for quite some time. And today he is currently married, has other partners, and describes his non-monogamy kind of as part swinging, part polyamory, and part kink.
Yeah, this is, as Emma said, a wonderful conversation, and we're super excited to talk to Anthony. Yeah, he's got so much, a vast variety of experiences in the world of non-monogamy, and yeah, it's a great conversation. So thank you, Anthony, for coming on and sharing, and also thank you for the work you do. So a quick shout out to the podcast that Anthony has started with two of his other partners, as you will hear.
Yes.
Yeah, he's going to...
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. He's going to talk about it a bit more, but I will just say up front here, the podcast is called 3 Shades of Grey. You can find out more information on our website at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the podcast tab and you'll find links to our show notes, which will have links to all of Anthony's work and the podcast and everything that gets talked about today. But we have something really fun coming up the next few weeks.
We do.
Yeah. So this week, we've got an interview with Anthony. Today, right now, in a few minutes. And next week, we have an interview with his partner, Ava. And the following week, we have an interview with his wife, Pinky. Mm-hmm. And then the following week, we actually have all three of them back on the show to talk about their relationship as sort of a triad, or sort of the way the three of them navigate being in partnership.
Actually.
Yes, a V, correct. Mm-hmm. So I want to say about this, which I think is really cool, is all three of them have very different ways of exploring non-monogamy. They have different backgrounds in it. They have different, just everything is very different, and they bring it all together in a really beautiful way. And so the next 3 weeks, you're going to get 3 very different stories about non-monogamy. And then on the last week, you're going to get how they do it all together.
It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome. So looking forward to the next couple of weeks, and we hope you join us.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. For anyone who's a premium subscriber, we're going to jump into the interview right now. And for anyone else, we're going to go through a few announcements. First up, if you're not familiar with the premium subscription, it's a way to skip these announcements up front. But don't worry, you still get important dates and upcoming events in the outro. To sign up for $4 a month, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, scroll down on the homepage, and you can sign up right there.
And some of those important dates Emma was talking about that you do not want to miss. The first one is coming up here on September 26th. That is our next virtual meet and greet. We took the summer off, but we're back. We've been doing these for like 4 years now.
Yeah, since 2020.
Since 2020. This was our pandemic baby.
It was. The virtual meet and greets. Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, we would love to have you join us. We're actually starting to rebrand these. We're calling them virtual speed findings because that's really what you're doing. You get to hang out with people from all over the world. We ask you a question. We put you in a breakout room with 4 or 5 other people. You talk about that question for a couple of minutes. We put you in a new room, ask a new question, do it over and over and over again for about 2 hours. And by the end of it, you've met a whole bunch of new, amazing people from all over the world who are maybe exploring non-monogamy, but definitely open-minded and awesome.
Yes. A quick reminder that these virtual meet and greets are open to anyone. You just must be open-minded and respectful. To sign up for the virtual meet and greets, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. And on the homepage, you'll see a banner at the top of the page. You can sign up right there, or you can find all of the information under the events tab. And I realized I was just calling them virtual meet and greets. We are rebranding, as Finn said, to virtual speed friending.
We're slowly fading away.
Yeah, I have to work on rebranding them in my head.
Yeah, nobody will get penalized if you call it a virtual meet and greet. And perhaps maybe you're looking for a little more consistency in your community and in your support, and you would like something a little bit more regular.
Yes, you hear us talk about our virtual community every week, and we want to extend a special invite for you to come check it out. Over on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, on the community tab, you can find out all of the information to join us all for $5 a month. We have over 300 members and do several community discussion calls throughout each month. It's an amazing group of people, and we would love, love, love to have you come join us.
Yeah, besides the community calls, we also hang out in a private platform, an app called Mighty Networks. And yeah, people are in there all day, every day, supporting one another, having a good time, just hanging out, making friends, and truly just building community and building a support system.
And occasionally they get to meet each other in person.
That's true.
We all get to meet each other in person.
We do. Every once in a while, get our group together in person. And we actually have one of those events coming up this coming weekend. So it's last minute for most of you if you haven't been paying attention for the last 3 months. We've been raving about this, but we have an in-person retreat happening in the San Francisco Bay Area this coming weekend, September 13th to the 15th, 2024, where over 50 people from the virtual community from all over the world are coming together to hang out for the weekend and get some of those virtual hugs, but get them in real life. It's going to be amazing.
We're so excited.
Yeah. And if you happen to miss this one because you just started paying attention, don't worry. It won't be the last one. We have another one coming up somewhere else in the country, somewhere around the April timeframe. We don't have it fully fleshed out, but we're working on doing about 2 of these a year. So if you're like, I'm so sick of virtual stuff, we hear you. We're also doing in-person stuff. So you get best of both worlds, and we'd love to have you join us.
We would. And last but not least, our favorite way to get tested for STIs, it is stdcheck.com. You also hear us talk about this every week, and it is a service that Finn and I use to get tested. It is a great way, and it's super efficient and discreet, which is really, really nice. To get $10 off a 10-panel test, you can use the links on the resources tab of our website, making a 10-panel test only $129. And you also support the show in doing so. So thank you very much. And best of all, you get to know your sexual health status.
Yes, you do. And also those links are in your podcast player down below as well. So if you're tired of going to our website,
you don't have to.
But chances are you're already over there signing up for the virtual meet and greet and the community. So you might as well grab yourself an STI test while you're there.
There's a lot of cool things on the website.
Yeah, it's bundle and save.
Yes.
Bundle and save. All right. The last thing we want to tell you is please send us an email, send us a voicemail. We'd love to have you come on the show, or we'd love to hear your feedback. You can do that by heading over to our website where you're already doing all those other things and click on the Contact Us tab. From there, I believe in you. You will figure it out, and we would love to hear from you.
And now let's go and talk with Anthony.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Anthony. We're excited to talk today. We know very, very little about you. We were just talking about this, how one of your partners was the point person for setting up all these conversations, and we'll be talking to Ava later. But for now, we got you, and we don't know anything about you. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
We would love for you to introduce yourself at whatever level you're comfortable doing so.
Well, my name is Anthony Grayman. I am one of the co-hosts of a brand new podcast we just started this past February called 3 Shades of Grey. It's all about the adventures that myself, my wife, and my girlfriend, you mentioned Ava, it's my girlfriend, and Pinky, who is my wife, have navigating non-monogamy. We all have a different way of how we see non-monogamy and how we practice it. And so those are the three shades, which is a slight nudge to another story or a book or series of a similar name.
Yeah. A gray one. We got you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to dig in because to take three different ways of doing non-monogamy and bring them together into any dynamic is not an easy thing. And so we're excited to talk today.
Yeah. We would love for you to start, like, just maybe what does it look like for you today? And then we'll jump back in time.
So what it looks like for me today is I'm navigating it as a married person now. Originally started out as single and being in different relationships or having other partners, girlfriends, or what have you. And it's a very different look being a single man and now becoming a married man and trying to navigate and seeing some of the guys that are approaching my wife or my girlfriend and thinking back, I remember when I was doing some of this stuff, and it's just like, you almost want to you want to give them a word of advice because you see them making, I don't want to say mistakes, but certain things that I know that I had problems with. And when you keep on doing the same thing over and over, that's what they call insanity and expecting a different outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely imagine the way of navigating this as a solo person versus in a couple or a triad or any other dynamic is totally different. And yeah, to be able to sit, having sat in both seats, looking at it, I'm sure it's a constant exercise in biting your tongue and also trying to let people like navigate their own mistakes and learn their own lessons. Because I don't know, you can't force people to know some of these things.
No, you can't. And eventually, I've been voluntold by my wife and my girlfriend, you should have some kind of class or do something to help these guys because it's just.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, maybe that's a good. We'll get the teaser for the class right here, and we'll go back in time. And like, I'd love to hear how or when did non-monogamy or alternative relating, when was that first sort of something you started exploring?
I started exploring, well, little background. I came from a very religious family, went to church every week, and also somebody who questions a lot of things. I like clarification on anything that I'm doing. And I can remember being in a Bible study class, and we started talking about King Solomon. For anybody who's familiar with King Solomon, had multiple wives and concubines. And even at the time, I used to, just because I enjoyed talking to different people, I was talking to different young ladies at the time growing up. And I was told, no, you should really talk to one and you shouldn't be talking to all these different people. Like, choose one and then, stick with that. And it's like, well, I don't know if I like that person in the same way. I like everybody for different things. Well, needless to say, I questioned a little bit too much and I was asked to leave one of the classes. So that kind of put a seed in my head and said, if I can't ask questions about something, maybe there's something wrong. And it's not a knock on anybody's religion or what have you. It's just, maybe this particular religion or belief system doesn't work for me, which is what kind of led me to have an open mind.
Yeah.
So going from that, I kind of went out into the world, so to speak, and my eyes were definitely opened.
Yeah. And just for some context, about how long ago was that?
More than 30 years ago.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
So you kind of, I mean, that's so hard, right? As a kid, you're trying to learn, you're trying to figure out the world, and you're told like, hey, stop asking questions. And actually to the point where you're not even welcome in this space anymore. Like what a strong reinforcement of like, don't question authority. And like for you to pop out the other side of that, being like, my mind is like even more open. Like, I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So going out into the world, one of the things that wasn't done is going to nightclubs and alcohol and all of these different things. And I ended up working in a nightclub for a while as a promoter. I tried to be a bouncer, but I saw that was just dangerous work. I was like, I'm not going to do that. But I started promoting, and I got introduced to a dominatrix. So when I met the dominatrix, she would bring, as she referred to them, her pets so that they can party at this rave, which was from 4 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So definitely a new world to me. But, funny enough, we would have conversations as she would kind of watch over the people that she brought and was kind of watching over. And I started diving and asking questions about BDSM, and my questions were being answered. And what particularly caught my attention was more of the psychological aspect of why people engage in certain behaviors and are comfortable in certain situations. Being dominant versus submissive, being in control all the time, sometimes the illusion of control that people think, particularly, with a sub. A lot of people think that subs don't have any control over their situations. They kind of just take everything that's given to them, but they're very much in control. Okay. They know how much they want depending on what the scene is or what's going on. And they have just as much control as the dominant. And it's more of a symbiotic relationship. And I got to understand that pretty early on.
Yeah. And it sounds like from a pretty trusted source, at least for you, right? Somebody who's been doing this for a while and has multiple people that are sort of in this power dynamic with her.
Yes. She was the first one who took me to a dungeon for the first time, which was a very traumatic experience for me, because it's one thing to hear about things, it's another to actually see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somebody likes to be spanked or somebody likes to be choked or what have you. It's another thing to actually see it going on. And if I could have melted into a wall similar to the cartoon character trying to go away into the bushes.
Yes. Know what you're talking about.
If I could have done that, I definitely would have.
Yeah. Well, and I'm envisioning this being sometime in your 20s. Like you were pretty young and like introducing all of this. Like it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I thought, what the hell is wrong with these people? Like, these people are crazy.
Yeah, well, which is interesting because you go from the like learning about it, being interested enough to go, and then to have like it flip. Like once you actually got in there, that's actually really, I think, a powerful experience. And I'm curious, when you walk away from that first experience, you said it was very traumatic for you. Where did you go from there?
I said, never bring me back here again. This is not what I'm interested in. Like, no, stop. And, it'd be interesting if the story ended there, but obviously we're here talking about it. So the story did not end at that point, because what happened was there was aftercare for me. I had questions and, hey, this bothered me. Why would somebody do this? And what's going on? And compared to what I was coming from, all of my questions were appreciated and welcomed. And there were answers given back. So the more I got information, the more my anxiety about things, the more, doubts about it were kind of brought down, but I still wasn't necessarily sold on it. However, I still maintained a relationship with the dominatrix, found out for myself that I really wasn't submissive or necessarily a switch. I had more of a dominant personality, and was definitely learned a lot from her. We ended up being invited to another event, and I'm single at that. Well, not really single. I don't even know how we defined it, but she invited me to another event with some of the people that I had met from the dungeon the first time.
And the two of you were kind of dating in a way, but like not. It sounds like it was pretty
situationship.
Yeah, a situationship.
Yeah, situationship would be definitely the way to. Before that word became a thing, it was a situationship, and I said, okay. She's like, no, it's just going to be a nice little chill get together. Somebody has a nice, loft. We're just going to go there, and it's not going to be like the heavy dungeon scenes. I'm like, all right, no problem. I'll go. And this was my first introduction into swinging or sex positive parties. And I definitely felt a draw being, in my early 20s, like, oh, I could get along with this. And that's where the journey started really picking up.
Yeah. I'm curious what that first party looked like. I mean, we often ask people like, well, what were you feeling going to that first part? But it sounds like you didn't even know exactly what it was until you were there.
And it also sounds like a very different experience in the dungeon.
Different experience from the dungeon. This was more laid back and chill. It wasn't like I walked in and I didn't walk into an orgy. I'll put it like that.
Yeah.
But it was somebody who just was having a party in their house. And as the night progressed and people became more free and liberating and clothes started coming off, and I was like, I feel more comfortable with this than I would with in a dungeon. And it was also interesting to know that some of these people who were heavily into BDSM were at the same thing. So it's not like you could be pigeonholed in one thing. Well, I'm just into BDSM and that's it. I mean, what we try to do with our podcast is just discuss non-monogamy in all of its different forms. And there's a lot of overlap in all of it, from BDSM to poly to swinging, stag, vixen, hot wife, all the different ones that people try to label or place labels on. There's a lot of overlap in all of them, as far as my experience has been.
Yeah, without a doubt, And I'm curious if. It sounds like it was a few years ago, right? But if you're able to go back in time, like, how was that first evening for you? Obviously better than the dungeon, but like, how was it? Like, what was it like?
It was kind of like walking into a candy shop. I'm like, there are people who are comfortable with just being intimate with somebody. And it wasn't just necessarily a free for all, because I've had events or things after that where things were kind of free for all or whatever. But it was more like you could sit down with somebody, get to know them, have a conversation, have a couple of laughs, and then it's like, oh, well, do you want to play? Or maybe if you don't play, you watch them go off and start playing with somebody else. And the atmosphere, it just invites feeling comfort. That's, I think, what was the biggest thing. I felt comfort in that group of people, where it was one of the first times that I played where there were other people around. Up until this point, being young, hey, if I could, have sex with people or find somebody who was like, yeah, all this excitement, but it really wasn't this, I don't know if I'm having the right words for it, but it really wasn't, the sex wasn't the highlight, so to speak, as opposed to, being young and like, hey, I'm trying to hook up with somebody or whatever. And like you hook up with them, it's like, yeah, that wasn't the highlight. The highlight was kind of the entirety of the experience. Even watching somebody else play or another group play, that was more of the highlight than anything that I participated in.
Yeah. It sounds like just being in the experience itself was like the sort of the what you took away from it, right? That the experience and the environment itself felt comfortable, regardless of how many people you played with or hooked up with or whatever. It was just, you got to be in an environment that you'd never been in that also felt comfortable.
And it was something that I wanted to say, I want to do this again. Like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so where did it go from there?
So it went from there of being invited back a couple of times. Sadly, the relationship kind of fizzled out. And being a single guy at the time, there really wasn't as much out there. Like, it was a point where you had to know people to get invited. I actually, at one point, sent a self-addressed stamped envelope to a list away so I can get back a list which had personal ads of individuals, and it would either have a PO box number or a beep or a pager number. You'd reach out and you get used. Like, if we think that emojis or LOL and all those other things, being able to decipher a personals ad with all of the, you know, BM seeks, couple CPL and all of that stuff to be able to fit in very small boxes.
Yep.
And you can actually decipher it. It's was similar to what emojis are today.
Yeah, the coded language of personal ads.
Yes, yes.
And if you can fit it on a beeper screen, even better. That's not something we have to deal with anymore. Amazing. And so, were you able then to find your way into some other spaces that started to feel comfortable?
I did. One of the things that I ended up learning quite early is what I call, for a single guy, is you have to bring sand to the beach. And being the single guy going into spaces with couples, one, you should be on your best behavior. But a lot of the events that I was invited to, because I didn't have a partner with me, it was like, hey, you're a nice guy, but this is more of a couples, single women's type of space. Maybe if you find somebody, come back. But other than that, we don't want you kind of around hovering and weirding people out. And I didn't think I gave off creeper vibes, but
yeah,
as I navigated, I could see, a majority of guys that are in the lifestyle, or not necessarily in the lifestyle, but are taking advantage of the benefits of it, kind of do give off those creeper vibes. So it's just like one bad apple will spoil it for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if it's not a majority, if there's any, right, if it happens, yeah, it's very quick, like often like an overcorrection, and you're sort of swimming in the wake of everyone who's come before you and having to then navigate. Like, I can just, for myself, even thinking about that, like moments where you're like, wait, I'm not like those people, and yet I'm not afforded any opportunity to like show anything else. So yeah, that's a tough way to get into it. How were you able to bring the proverbial sand to the beach?
So I started finding out. So that was my experience with couples. And then I found out that there were more sex positive or play parties going on. This was, you'd find ads on, when Craigslist was it, or the place to be. So you'd find out about parties and events through that. And they were open to single men at a very high premium, which was something that I discovered. They'd invite you as a single guy, but you were paying for sometimes a couple and a half, like just by yourself. So I navigated some of those spaces and found a few events that I enjoyed. And I went to them, and I had a time when I had the thought, well, if I'm paying all of this, because once again, the promoters or the people who are hosting these events, they specifically say, like, you're paying for entry, you're not guaranteed anything. But being young and single, I'm like, hey, I'm paying all of this and I'm going to these events and nobody's approaching me. And I talk to somebody and I get cut off, and I'm standing in the corner of a room with my drink or whatever, watching everybody else do something, and I'm here by myself. And it was frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, became set and angry and, I want to say, bitter to a point where it's just like, yeah, no, this is, this is bullshit. Like, I'm not going to do this. But you have a couple glimmers of hope ever so often. And I started to have conversations with people and kind of figured out that if I started to make connections with people and not necessarily focus on the hooking up part, that it's kind of like the long game, but in the end, people took notice. They're like, oh, hey, he comes here, he's not hovering, he's not, harassing people. Let's invite him to something else. And, it's similar to anything in life. You don't realize that people are always watching you, whatever it is that you're doing, and they take notice of these things. And when you least expect it, hey, we're having a barbecue next weekend. You want to stop by the house? Like, okay.
Yeah.
You start to form connections by being present and being on your best behavior in those moments as well. And just being a kind and considerate human. People, like you said, people notice that and you start to form those connections. So it sounds like that started to work for you.
Yes, it did start to work for me. Started getting invited to more places, seeing more single women at these events. One, as I mentioned earlier, the whole premium for being a single guy. Well, if you have somebody that you bring, and well, she was going to go, and not necessarily saying that we were together, but it was always like, hey, you want to go to this event? We'll go together. And it was better for me paying out a couple's price as opposed to a single guy's price.
Yeah.
And we would have fun, we might play together, we might not, but we arrived together and we ended up leaving together.
Yeah.
And had good friendships, good times.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that, Anthony. One thing I maybe just wanted to highlight here is something you touched on that we've talked about a few times and has come up a few times on the show around parties and events. And that is the tiered pricing that sets the price for single males exorbitantly high. And I know there's all sorts of theories about this and why you do that and everything, but I really appreciate you sharing that the real impact that has is there's something that we've shared a lot is you end up creating a lot of resentment and bitterness in people that show up thinking, right, instead of it being the single men that you do have are there chilled out, wanting to just be part of the experience. They're going, I paid, maybe $150, $200 to be here. I want something for that money, right? Even if you're not that type of person, anytime you drop enough money and you're like, now I'm here, expectations do get created. Even if you, like you said, you don't want to go in with that, that's not the strategy. It's hard to not get resentful or bitter or feel shitty about, I'm standing in the corner by myself while everybody else who paid less to be here is having a good time. There's no way around that feeling like shit.
And over time, I kind of understood, and I'm still on the fence about it. Being single, I've been to other events where there was a couple that would put on events, and they had a slightly different strategy where before they would invite single men, they ended up having you want to call it a vanilla meet and greet. Because the theory, and I've kind of adopted this theory, is when you go to a party or an event, you know what everybody is there for. They're there to hook up, play, and find what they want. So if you eliminate that and just be yourself, then, you know, you will probably end up, being a lot more successful. So he would have, and these parties actually were more geared to women who like multiple partners. So the women that were going to be at the party were out at a bar or a lounge hanging out, and he would actually watch how the guys would interact, because if you can't interact in a regular vanilla environment to see how people are doing, well, when you go to the party, you're going to be the wallflower, you're going to be the one. And these are women, for lack of a better term, who are looking for a guy that's just not going to be a dick. Okay. So be a nice guy, be courteous, be able to hold a conversation, and there's a higher potential that you'll maybe get to play with somebody that you have interest in. And so, I found that was one group that I found, and I kind of was, and that was more of the hot wife, stag, vixen arena, which is what I spent most of my time being single, as a, as they say, as a bull, or as a third, depending on how they wanted to look at it. But that's where I spent a majority of my time as a single person.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. And I just when you say like what they're looking for is just a guy who's not going to be a dick, it's hard because you're like, that's how low the bar is. And that there's so many people who still can't show up and clear that. And so I don't know. I think there's just so much that gets packed into that. So I know we could spend 3 hours talking about it. And
Definitely.
But yeah, I'd love to maybe kind of pick up there. And it sounds like you've spent now some time in the BDSM world, going to some swinging parties, going to some of these stag vixen parties. Where does your adventure take you from that point?
So my adventure then takes me to a party where I ended up actually meeting Ava. So, some people ask, wait a minute, so you met your girlfriend first, and then you met your wife, and then you got married to your wife. And it's like, how does that work? Well, being one of the selected single men that was allowed at certain parties, that's where I ended up meeting Ava. And she was actually at this party with a date. And I'm not going to spoil it because I'll save that for Ava so that she can really delve into that. But I met her at that party, and through friends of friends, she ended up getting my information because apparently I made an impression on her, and she reached out to me, and we started becoming partners. We got together and we ended up talking a lot. But one of the things I think from there, which is our dynamic, is we have conversations, but I think it was from the beginning, and with quite a few of my partners, like there's an understanding of maybe it's an unspoken understanding of how the dynamic goes. If there are issues, we try to talk about it, but you let the dynamic flow in the direction that it's going to go. And marriage didn't seem to be that direction to go with Ava, but we still enjoyed each other's company. And we've maintained this now for going on almost 6 years.
Wow. That's amazing. And so that almost seems like a shift from these are just sex parties or just sex positive spaces to
forming more partnerships.
Yeah, forming a partnership.
Yes. And I had a few partnerships before, but this one was kind of one that kind of really I learned from my past experiences, and I won't say that they're mistakes. I had a lot of experiences on how I approach people, and I think one of the things was, for a while I was living in two spaces. I had a vanilla space and I had a alternative lifestyle space. And I never let the two interact. I kept them separate. So, I'm out there and, some of my vanilla friends are like, hey, where do you go on a Saturday or a weekend? Like, why didn't you do that? And I'd be like, oh, I had to work or I had something else to do or whatever, because I'd be at a party or an event, and people in the alternative lifestyle, I really kept some anonymity to myself because I didn't want it to bleed over. But after a while, I think you get older, and I joke, you find out why the old man down the street is always kids kind of thing as you get older, or that you have somebody who just kind of speaks and like, you know what, this is who I am. I'm not going to apologize for it. I didn't necessarily, and well, we have a podcast now, so cat's out of the bag, but we weren't necessarily pushing it out like, yeah, I'm this, I'm that, and you should be too. But I was changed my way of doing it, even on some of the websites where, you know, anybody who goes on any of these websites, you'll see a blurred out picture or just from the neck down kind of thing until people know. I just said, you know what? If you're on this website, my face is here. If you go on here, I more than likely you're looking for the same thing. So whatever. And I think that was another shift, which kind of where it is now, I've allowed both worlds to comfortably coexist with each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a huge shift.
It is. And I'm curious how, if you're comfortable digging in a little bit to like, how did that play out for you? Because if you just looking back to the beginning of your story, like you had the experience of you're showing up as you to Bible study and getting kicked out. And so here you are again at that crossroads of like, I'm going to be Anthony. How did it go this time when you started to let those worlds bleed into one another?
During some of these times when I had these experiences where I was learning from, I had periods of monogamy. Having a child kind of changes things, and it's like, okay, that was the fun part. Like, you were out there, I had my fun. Now I have to be an adult, and I monogamous and 2.5 kids, a dog, picket fence, and all of these things. And I'm happy about it. I'm happy that I, have a child and everything is good. But there was always this little part of me, which I always, in any other relationship, when it kind of starts out monogamous, at some point, I would kind of try to bring up my past or what I'm into, my interests. And most of the times it ends up being more pillow talk. But I wasn't as forceful out of saying, hey, I want to have a threesome, or I want us to go to a party, or I would want to see you with somebody else. It was all mostly pillow talk. And it wasn't rebuffed, which was good. But for various things, various reasons, it wasn't something that they were looking to necessarily jump into. And I was okay with that. But, with that and other things, relationships kind of run their course and you start branching off and growing apart. Thankfully, I still have good relationship with my child's mother, and she's aware of what's going on, but also trying to keep that away from children until the right time, which is, definitely a difficult thing to navigate, because I know, having a teenager now, the curiosity, it's easy when they're young, but they start getting older and they start noticing patterns and picking up things, and just being able to kind of like, wait a minute, don't look here, don't, it's adult stuff. Don't worry about it.
Which definitely squashes the curiosity in my experience. when you tell someone not to look somewhere, they definitely listen, especially kids.
Oh yeah, no, it's just like don't jump off the bridge. They're gonna jump off.
All right.
Yeah.
But I think I want to have that conversation at a appropriate time.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily it's not the kind of conversation that you have with a preteen or it's early teenager. It's just not. You want them to grow into their bodies, kind of let them experience things and be there if they have questions to ask. With a couple of questions have been asked, there's the natural embarrassment about asking things, but making it so that, hey, you can come to us and ask questions if you have any questions about anything. I can imagine a few years from now, maybe the conversation can be had when they're of age, but at the moment, kind of, hey, dad's going to go hang out with friends. That's about as far as the discussion needs to go.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And so when you kind of touched on too, that there's like, you do sometimes get some pushback that you've been with your girlfriend longer than your wife and how that all sort of blows people's minds, which I can totally understand. And yet also it's not that crazy, people, right? So it's kind of funny that there's like both sides of that coin. But yeah, when did sort of your relationship with Pinky come into play?
So my relationship with Pinky came at a time when I was actually injured. I had to be at home for a couple of months recuperating. There's only so much TV and videos you can watch online before you start. And I navigated the world of online dating and found that infuriating. And a lot of the things that I did is I just ended up shutting them down. But you're sitting on a couch with your leg propped up. What else do you have to do but kind of just be on your phone? So I opened it up just to have conversations, laugh at, some of the funny photos and whatever. And Pinky and I connected and we ended up going on a date. We started talking to each other and saw that she was a real person, because that's one of the other things with the online dating. For my experience has been some of the women on there, they have, come and check out my OnlyFans, or come and send out my Snap, or they're using it for work, which nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't what I was looking for. Or the usual is you find somebody you connect with and you start having a conversation, the usual, like, how are you? Where are you from? What do you do? All of these things that might last for, if you're lucky, a week, and then nothing. Radio silence, the connection, you try to reach out or what have you. But with Pinky, the conversation and the connection kept going. So I kept going with it. So where it went is, Ava will tell you, she knew that I liked Pinky before I even told her that I was talking to Pinky, because she's like, the level of engagement kind of went down. And so I remember the conversation is like, so when are you going to tell me that you have a girlfriend? I'm like, what are you talking about? What girlfriend? Me? Girlfriend? No. It's like, well, you're talking to somebody. I know that. So, whoever it is, when you're ready to tell me, you tell me. So Ava and I, this was actually during the holiday time. So Ava and I were deciding that we wanted to have a lifestyle New Year's Eve party. And when I finally connected with Pinky, this was during the holidays. One of the conversations we had on our date is, or in conversation is, what are you doing for the holidays? Or what are you doing for New Year's? And I just kind of said, oh, I'm going to a party, because I didn't know if we were going to really be together. And one of the things that I learned from my different experiences are being straightforward and upfront. I don't want to lie. I don't need to lie. I am who I am. Sometimes omission can be viewed as a lie, but sometimes a lot of information being given out at once maybe isn't the right way to go. So I just left it as I'm going to help a friend throw a party, which isn't a lie, but I didn't go into all of these details. And Pinky ended up saying that, oh, well, I'm going to go hang out with a friend, and that's cool. A few days after that conversation, she tells me, oh, my friend can't get off for New Year's. Can I be your plus one? And now the alarms start going off in my head. Like, okay, what am I going to do here? And one, I was helping to throw the party, so I put out, which necessarily wasn't a lie, but I omitted some things. I says, well, you're not going to know the people that are at this party, and I'm helping my friend host it, so I may not be able to have as much time to spend with you as, you know, would be good because we're just starting to date. You know, you bring somebody somewhere and you're being totally ignored with strangers that you don't know. And then on top of it, add that it's a sex positive party. That's just not the way to, throwing somebody straight into the deep end.
Yeah. Did Pinky know that you were non-monogamous? Like, did she know she was in a non-monogamous dynamic?
No, which was the conflict that I ended up having with myself. I ended up calling her one day. I said, hey, can I talk to you? He's like, sure. It's like, no, let me stop by. I want to talk to you in person. And as she will probably tell you when you speak to her, she said, oh, yeah, sure. Come by. We will talk. As soon as she hung up the phone with me, she went on the phone with her girlfriend. Oh my God, he has like 12 wives and 20 kids and some other whatever, and he's coming here. I'm, freaking out because I don't want to lie to her, and I want there to be full transparency about what I'm doing. If I went to this party and I didn't tell her until afterwards, I really liked her. That was the big thing. I liked her who she was. She was straightforward. She didn't pull any punches, and she didn't deserve. If this wasn't something that she wanted, I wanted her to have an informed decision. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. If you're not on board with it, and especially being older, you don't want to waste any time. It's like, oh yeah, let's wait 2 years and then I can bring this up. Like, no, you're getting older. You want to hopefully, in my case, find somebody that you can develop a partnership with and, grow old together. So I came over to her house and I dropped a bomb on her, and I'm sitting across from her waiting for her at any moment to say, get the fuck out of my house. But she just staring at me. And, I told her about the BDSM. I told her about the sex parties and all of these things. And she kind of looked at me and says, I don't know if I can be with somebody like that. I was like, okay, fair enough. I'm still waiting for get the fuck out. And so she starts asking more questions. And she's like, well, why and how and all of these things. And I try to explain it. And after that conversation, she's like, well, I appreciate your honesty and all this. Maybe I'll just keep you as a friend. And she kept true to her word because we're married now. So we're still friends. And I ended up going to the party and helping my friend with the party. She kept on asking questions about it. And she actually was pushing me a little bit more. Like, she didn't know if this was something that she wanted to do, but she ended up saying that she didn't want me to kind of not be who I was, because the conversation came up like, okay, well, if we're together, are you going to be monogamous? And I said, well, I had this thought, and if you be me and liking you and wanting to be with you, I was kind of ready, like I had been in the past, that, okay, this is the time that I grow up and I be an adult and I move on and I become this monogamous person. But even before she embraced it, she had this thing like, I don't want you to be I don't want you to not be who you are. So she started going and doing her research and her exploration in it. And actually, she is the one that found your podcast. And, she would send me podcasts. She's like, listen to this. I'm like, what's this? It's like, listen to this. And I would listen to a couple of episodes. I'm like there and a couple other podcasters that are out there. She got all of this information from you guys. So all of this, if I haven't said that, and this is our first time meeting, thank you, Em and Finn, for helping the progression of this our dynamic. Because I don't think if she was hearing other people's stories and their ups and downs and all the things that they've been through, we wouldn't be sitting here right now having this conversation.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Happy to do it, and I love that. Just the openness and honesty you had to have to and courage to go to her and say, "Here's who I am," knowing full well that she's you said you were prepared to get kicked out of her house, and that you two were able to continue having the conversations and to land where you are today. I think it's just, I don't know, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and I really appreciate everything you shared. And I'm curious, like, so today you ended up marrying Pinky, and you have that relationship. Mm-hmm. You have a relationship with Ava, and what else is in your constellation?
Well, one of the things that is in our constellation is we started exploring, and that's one of the things when this was all just before somebody pulled the plug on the world. So we had more than enough time to sit down and have very deep conversations. I think those 2.5 years worked out to about 5 years of conversations, because you have nobody else to talk to. And we did a lot of exploration and reaching out to other people. We have a little group of a few couples that we hang out with on a regular basis, and trying to build our community together. I know in the beginning, I myself, based on experience that I had before, figured that if I'm going to start a relationship with somebody, that I needed to put a pause on my other relationships. And I had a good enough relationship with them that I could say, hey, I'm talking to somebody now. I want to keep our friendship and our relationship going, but I'm going to take a pause. And well, it really didn't matter because we weren't seeing each other during those, many months anyway, but kind of keeping people aware that we're in my sphere, that, hey, I'm talking to somebody. And one of those persons was Ava. It was just keeping everybody, informed of what we were doing and what's going on. I remember the first time that I actually felt comfortable to go and do something by myself. I was sitting down having a conversation with Ava, and Pinky just kind of grabs the phone and starts having a conversation. Because most of the times before this, it was usually like, I have my conversation and she's like, oh, well, Pinky would say hi to Ava, or Ava would say, oh, say hi to Pinky. I remember she just grabbed the phone and they had a conversation together, like the first time they're having their own conversation. And it led to like, okay, well, you're going to go see Ava in, next week, go have fun. And both of us, Ava and I, were like, did she just say what we thought she said? And we were very surprised that but time had passed. We had conversations. We discussed everything. And, Pinky was comfortable enough with the groundwork or the foundation that we developed, that she was just like the first person that I ended up going out playing solo with was Ava. From there, Pinky and Ava started developing a more, I guess the term they use are soul sisters. And, they developed their relationship, which led us to doing a lot of things together, leading to the podcast and just, where I'm at now, which is something that you had asked me 30 years ago if I was going to be, this was what my life would be. I would have told you, like, no, are you kidding me? I'm going to be married with a girlfriend and, have a couple other paramours out there or other people, play partners. And my wife would have her own partners and all that. I never could have imagined being here at this point, or this is what my life is. But I'm very happy that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't one of the answers they were giving at Bible study. The way life is supposed to go. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I mean, I know we could talk forever, Anthony, and we're lucky enough we get to have you back on. We're going to have you and Pinky and Ava come on to talk about sort of how the three of you sort of do this together and what that looks like after we sort of get your individual stories. So I want to say, thank you for sharing everything you have today and for your vulnerability with us, and wanted to give you a few minutes to just touch on your podcast and what that looks like, and then maybe one or two other questions before we let you go.
We do our podcast. It started back in February of this year, 2024. We put out 2 episodes a month. The first episode is usually on the 14th, which has significance, particularly February 14th. February 14th was the day that Pinky and I moved in together. So that's where putting out the first episode, putting it out on Valentine's Day was like, we really pushed and worked to get it be released on that day. So at the moment, we put out an episode the 14th of every month. And then the ladies, they have their own segment, which is called the Pajama Party, which comes out on the 28th of every month, where they talk very openly, raunchy and raw about their experiences and different subjects. From a term they use are professionals, the single guys that are in their spheres and they want them to be professional, up to and including their own journeys on finding partners or navigating. But it's just the girls having their own conversation about it. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and actually our own website, 3shadesofgrey.com. That's 3, the number 3, shadesofgrey.com.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
And links to all of that will be in the show notes for anyone listening, so you can easily find it. I'm curious too, just before we let you go, and I know we'll talk about this more with all 3 of you too, but like on your end, how has it gone being open in, like you said, you kind of have woven those 2 worlds a little bit together. How has that gone for you?
It's gone good. It's nice to be able to have a group of people that I can be 100% open and have a conversation with. It's Ava and Pinky. Some of the other people are in our social circle.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to know that we can all go out, have a good time. If we've done this, we've gone out for dinner, going out for axe throwing, all these different things that we go out and do together. And sometimes it ends up with, play or something. But more often than not, it's just like, hey, we got to all go out together and hang out with each other and have a good time. And the conversation can go from discussing the weather, which, is what you kind of do in vanilla circles, because there's certain conversations that you just don't have. But we are able to have these conversations that can talk about the weather, but you can say, oh, you won't believe what Ava did last night. Like, she rocked my world and this was amazing. And I can have that. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And, there's nothing off limit,
mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what has happened. And I appreciate now that I have a group of people that I can be myself with. I don't have to censor myself. You know, if I'm out with vanilla people and certain jokes are just, I don't know if this is going to go over well with them. So I'm just going to, you're so quiet, Anthony. I'm like, oh, no, I'm good.
Yeah. I am quiet, but that's okay.
Yeah.
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 Well, thank you so much. Did you have other questions?
No, other than just if there's anything you wanted to share out into the world today. I know you have your own platform, but we love to give people an opportunity before we let them go. If there's any final things you wanted to say to the greater world out there before we let you go.
Our goal with doing the podcast is kind of paying it forward. And hopefully by hearing our stories, both serious and funny, it connects with somebody who's out there who's just starting, or even people who have been doing it for years, that they can say, hey, I remember when I was like that, or hey, at this moment we're going through this kind of issue right now and it sounds similar, and maybe giving some ideas on how they can get past it. And even with this, non-monogamy, I don't think is for everybody. And it's good to be able to explore it, but, explore it openly and make the decision for yourself. Is this the space that you really want to stay in? Or is this, are you comfortable with monogamy? I mean, even just looking back, my parents and generations before me, that was more so the thing. And now it's becoming a little bit more, I want to call it mainstream, for lack of a better term, but people are more open to these dynamic than they were years ago. So we can help somebody with it and just having the conversation, we're very happy.
Yeah. Awesome.
Amazing. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anthony, for everything you've shared today. We've really loved talking to you and just appreciate your time and
the work you do.
And we're excited to talk with all three of you as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. It's a pleasure getting to talk with you, and also just so you know how much of an effect you had on us being here.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And we'll let you go for now, but we will be in touch soon for the follow-up. I guess the sequel. I don't know. It's part 4? I think it would be part 4 technically of the series. So.
It would be what other movies have 4 parts to it? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Not many.
We're doing a new thing here.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well,
enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll definitely talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
And we are back. Thank you so much, Anthony, for everything that you shared today and for the amazing work that you're doing with Ava and Pinky too. We're excited to send people your way. Again, the reminder that their podcast is called 3 Shades of Grey, and links are in your podcast show notes or over on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, in the show notes.
Yes, and a huge thank you from my side as well, Anthony, for coming on, for sharing the wide array of experiences you've had over the last couple of decades of exploring non-monogamy. It is an amazing journey, and we're really grateful that you came on and shared, and that you've decided to launch a podcast earlier this year. So thank you for all the hard work you do. We know how hard it is to knock out a podcast like this, and so thank you.
A quick reminder that our upcoming virtual meet and greet, which we are rebranding as Speed Friending.
You almost got a penalty.
is on September 26th. So mark your calendars, go to our website and sign up. We would love to have you join us.
The best way to mark your calendar is actually to sign up, because then Zoom will send you a calendar invite. And then
there you go. That's all you have to do.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Exactly.
That's right. And the last thing that we want to remind you all about is that we will be back next week, as one would expect. And we'll be talking to Anthony's partner, Ava, who you heard a little bit about here in this interview, but you're going to hear a whole lot more next week. And it is an absolutely beautiful conversation. So we will see you in a week.
Yes, we will. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.